Welcome to the EntreprenHer Show. Today's guest is Ardre Orie, CEO of 13th and Joan Media. I am Heidi Richards Mooney, founder of Women in Ecommerce and host of the EntreprenHer Show, and it is my pleasure to bring you today's program. Let me tell you about today's guest. Ardre Orie is a social activist, publisher, philanthropist, and author on a mission to give marginalized voices a platform to speak. She is CEO of 13th and Joan Media and the founder of 100 Seeds of Promise literary initiative. As a celebrity ghostwriter, Ardre has written for hosts of clients, including a Grammy Award-winning artist, A-list Hollywood actors, professional athletes, and a bevy of entrepreneurs and everyday heroes. Ardre's work has been featured on VH1, MTV, WETV, Bravo, BET, Centric, and more. I am just delighted today to welcome Ardre to our show. Thank you, Ardre, for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it is truly my pleasure, and I know our guests are going to love to hear about you. So let's start with you telling us a little bit about your company, and then we'll talk about your nonprofits and all of that.
Okay, sure. 13th and Joan Publishing House was established. We will celebrate our 6th anniversary in October. And it's just a wonderful company that I originally started to publish my works, my film and media and books. And I started to get a lot of questions after publishing, how did you do it? How can you help me? And so I realized that, it was a service that a lot of people needed. And I wanted to make sure that we were able to help people who had stories, but they might not have been writers, to really formulate quality stories and ones that would withstand the test of time in the literary industry. So today we are home to over 200 stories, and our audience, our authors, it continues to grow, and we're just so proud of everyone who has taken that leap of faith and making history with us.
That's wonderful. So how did you become interested in becoming a celebrity ghostwriter?
That was not what I started out thinking about. I actually, after publishing a book that I had written really out of desperation, I had been searching for purpose and clarity in my walk as an entrepreneur. And so after several different ventures, writing was always something that came very natural to me. So I returned to doing that. And in doing so, after I published that book, I got a call from someone who had a client whose show was preparing to air on VH1. And they asked me, do you think it's possible to produce a book in 30 days? And so I had resigned from my job. I had a newborn. And I thought, well, I've got, one arm available because I'm holding my newborn in one arm. And so I can type with the other. And I took the challenge to do so. And I was able to produce that book in 30 days. And so it was really just word of mouth. The client for VH1 told someone else, this lady made my book happen in 30 days and it was ready for the show. And so, it just kept going like that. And I really did not formally advertise. And I truly didn't even know that that was a thing. I didn't know ghostwriting was a thing until I had been well into the career for about 2.5 years.
Wow. So it's a wonderful thing. It's kind of like it was something you were destined to do without even realizing it.
Very
That's
true. I think
fabulous.
that's true of our purpose. It's always right under our noses. We just don't realize.
Wow. And that's true, I think, of most of us. So, I want to just switch gears just a little bit because I know a lot of the things we're going to talk about are diversity and racism. And I want to talk about that specifically as it pertains to the publishing industry.
Mm-hmm.
So
Very true. Yes, I feel like, or I know that no structure was necessarily set up for the advancement of people like me. When we think about the publishing industry, we look at the statistics of who is publishing. It wasn't always available. When we think about historically, Black people even having the right to read, having access to literature. And so, us writing, even though we continue to do it, there were limitations, put in place on purpose. And so everything that I do seeks to unravel, those historically limiting times and institutions. And so I love the fact that I'm not chasing any of the traditional kinds of rewards. This is really about legacy building for storytellers and stories that have been marginalized and not always given fair game to be able to be shed light upon.
So tell us what you think or what it means to when you say marginalized.
First and foremost, and I can speak for myself as a Black woman, there is a lot of history that was written for me, but not always written by someone who looks like me. Much of our history in this country has been told to us rather than documented by us. And so that is very concerning because there are lots of avenues for that to be shifted. That is the power in telling stories. You have the power and the ability to shift the way people think, what they believe about themselves, what we know to be true. And many times when people see something in black and white, they automatically assume it to be fact. And so for me, I want to make sure, even something as modern as COVID, how I experienced COVID and how you experience COVID, there are some similarities, but there are also differences. And so it's important for you to document your experiences through your eyes as a person who experienced it, and the very same for me. And so that's really what I seek to do, is to make sure that those who are experiencing things are documenting their truths.
And I love the way you say through your eyes, because I don't think as a white woman, I could ever understand through your eyes what you see as opposed to through my eyes. So I see a lot of unjust and injustice and everything in the world, but I see it differently because it's not affecting me like it affects you. And
Right.
so I think it's really important that these stories are being told by the people they're happening to. And I'm so happy there are people like you, Ardre, who are on a mission to make that happen, because I just can't believe in today's day and age that we're still fighting this fight. It just blows my mind.
Yes.
I'm from California. My mother's best friend was a black woman. We grew up, it was just a very multicultural. She sang in a black band. My mother wasn't black, but she had a lot of black friends, and we called them black. We didn't call them African American. And everything was fine and beautiful. And then I moved to Florida, and I felt like I moved back 20 years in time. So it was really hard to get used to the racism here. And even though it still exists everywhere, it's wherever people are, there still exists. But I think that in some communities and some segments of America, it's a lot more pervasive, as we all know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important that women like you, and men as well, of all races, make this so that never happens and stops happening. So thank you for that. So let's talk about why it's important to address the trauma that results in being a marginalized voice.
Yes, first and foremost, I think that, and I just said today, I said out loud, and quite frankly, I was not proud of it, that for many years, I really wanted to wear rose-colored glasses and believe that things were not the way that they were. And I was forced, after watching the video of Philando Castile, to, shift. And it just is so traumatic, because after watching that, although there had been videos prior to that, there had also been many instances that were not videotaped prior to that. But that particular one made me say to myself, my gosh, my Black husband can leave our home right now and not come back, simply for following the rules or doing what he was supposed to do, or, you know, all of the things, being a good citizen, that doesn't change anything. It is the color of his skin that determines how someone will view him. And that reality is traumatizing because there's nothing that you can do to change it, nor would you want to. I'm super excited about being a Black woman. I'm happy about who I am and how God made me, but to know that we live in a society that judges us differently. The conversations that I have with my children about working twice as hard and, you know, making sure that you're better so that you can just be seen as equal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you think about that, that's not something that as a parent you should have to ever tell your child. And so, you know, there's so many instances of trauma, those that are very obvious to things that are not obvious at all. You know, listening to the stories that my daughter speaks about, growing to school in a predominantly white environment and the things that she experiences, something as minor as someone saying, "Oh, you're on the track team. Well, I know you're fast." And it's like, what does that mean? You know, and
Right.
so she tells the story. It was in her college essay about a young man who said, "I know that you're fast because Black people, their bones are made differently, so they're just genetically faster." And it's like, where did this come from? You know, like what?
I know, right?
So, and then, you know,
Oh,
this young man meant no harm. And so we have, you know, the spectrum where people are just operating out of not knowing, to this, you know, to the other end where people are operating from a place of hurt. And we're seeing instances, you know, like what happened in Milwaukee. And so this is just, it's traumatizing all around. And then on the other side of trauma, there is exhaustion, because there's so much that needs to happen as far as educating. I have so many friends who are not Black, who, especially when everything happened with George Floyd, were, you know, they contacted me, help me to understand, tell me what I don't know, tell me what I should be doing differently. And that's from a great place. It's phenomenal. But then after teaching and feeling that a target is on your back, you're exhausted, you know. So there's just a lot to be determined as far as trauma is concerned, but we have to address it, and we have to create safe spaces so that those things can come out, because it's not healthy for it to stay internal.
no. And I'm sorry that you are going through this, because it's a lot worse than me just being a woman in business and having to teach my daughters, you know, that you can do as well as a man. You know, you have even more layers of challenge
Yes,
because of the color of your skin. It's so crazy.
yes.
Well, you know, I'm not sure anything will change in my lifetime, but hopefully in your time. And definitely I'm hoping in my grandchildren's lifetime. They are like the most open and giving and
Oh, no.
caring human beings. And I've never seen them even think about the color of a person's skin. But I think that that's, you know, that's that generation of the, you know, teenagers that are coming up, and hopefully they will be the ones that will make the biggest changes on our planet, because I'm not sure my generation's ever going to do it, you know.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you know, it's exhausting. Someone asked me recently, do you feel like change is upon us? And I said, I used to, you know, I used to, but I'm not so sure. I am certain that I am not tired in this fight. You know, I am placed here for this purpose. And so I'm not weary in this fight, but I am very, very invigorated and hopeful with what I see in young people, watching them march, watching them be enraged, watching them, you know, do things to level the playing field. It has been immaculate. And as I said, you know, we live in an environment where we are often the minority, but the amount of support that we received as a Black family, you know, the calls from friends and my daughter's friends who were saying, let's go protest, this isn't right. And people, you know, so
That's so
it
great.
makes me proud of young people. I am very,
Yeah, it gives you hope.
it
And that's
does.
what we all need.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your literary initiative, the 100 Seeds of Promise, why you started it and what your mission is for that.
Yes. So Philando Castile is the reason. I, you know, reading this gentleman's story, and to know that he worked in the elementary school, and he was a person who bought lunches for children who did not have lunch money, and to see him, you know, be senselessly murdered with his child and fiance in the car. How low can you go? So one of the things that I started to look at and examine was the numbers of Black men who were authors. And so on one end of the spectrum, we're looking at the publishing industry and recognizing that there are injustices in place there. And then, we're looking at the country and the scope of things and recognizing the injustices in place there. So I knew for certain when I looked at our numbers that Black men's stories were not coming to light. The reason I started it was for that very reason, to move that forward and to be a part of the change. The other part of it is that I recognize that in a lot of instances, Black men did not feel that they had a safe space to share their stories. They didn't feel that anyone wanted to hear what they had to say, because in many instances, along with the trauma, they've been deemed, to not have anything of importance to say or contribute. And so the response that I received from the Black men let me know that I was on the right page. When I was initially sharing my thoughts and what I desired to do, I don't think that anybody really got it. When I said, I want to get 100 Black men together and I want them to all be authors. And, my team was like, okay, what? Now, what is she trying? I don't think anyone really understood. But now that it has really come to fruition, and to hear the responses from the men and to see the variation in the stories that they're telling, it is just mind-blowing. Even myself, I did not recognize that we would have, mystery and sci-fi and just all the things. Not that I didn't know we were into those things. I just didn't know that it would come to fruition in this way. So I'm very proud of these gentlemen. They work really hard. We've been able to really execute friendly competition, amongst them, and that really drives men to the finish line. So we're just pushing along, and they're continuing to do a great job in publishing their books.
That's excellent. And those 100 seeds will turn
100%.
into thousands of trees.
Yes,
absolutely. So that's so wonderful. Let's talk about what you, in your opinion, what do you think? What do white people need to know about discrimination, police brutality, and of course, race-based scapegoating?
Yes, the first thing that I know that needs to happen is that we have to acknowledge that this is a real problem. We have to stop pretending that because we have a few friends, of different complexions, that this isn't going on. It's happening in every space. There is not an industry that was created, with an even playing field. It is in every industry. It is in corporate America. It is in the media. It is in the sports industry, the entertainment industry. It's in education. It is in all realms and facets. And so the first thing is that, being an ally means really acknowledging it. And, one thing that I've been sharing with my friends is that no one has the ability to really call their people on it like your own people, so when I see a white person tell another white person, this is what you should be looking at, or this is the example of what happened and how there was no ally in place, those instances are more powerful because we as Black people have often been deemed as angry or frustrated or aggressive, when we're sharing these scenarios and things that have been happening to us over time. So the first step is acknowledgement. The second step is becoming an ally. It is, as I mentioned, when you say something to your peer, it holds a different weight than when I say something to your peer. That is just the way that it is. It is a truth that we might not want to acknowledge, but it is truth nonetheless. An example I have of that is that my daughter, my youngest daughter, she was in a dance class, and the teacher yelled at them. Now, how you yell at children in a dance class makes no sense, but it was an ongoing thing. So I contacted the school the School of Dance, and I said, hey, listen, I'm willing to come in. I'm willing to help. Education is my background. If the teacher is frustrated, if the students are doing something that's not needed, whatever, I can come in and be of assistance. But please keep this anonymous. This call is anonymous, and I'm not wanting to get the teacher in trouble. I just want to make sure the kids are happy. We're paying for them to be there, not to be yelled at. So my daughter contacted my husband on a text message, and she said, the teacher's in here yelling. Can you please come and get me? Now, she's just uncomfortable. She is the only Black student in the class. And so you have this teacher who's yelling. She just wants to get out. So my husband goes, he gets my daughter, and he says, may I speak with you for a moment? Now, he's a very gentle man. Everyone who knows him knows that he's very mild. I am not. He is very mild. And so he says, ma'am, may I speak with you? And so he spoke with the teacher, and she basically said something that was really rude. It was really, out of the way. And he said, okay, that's fine. I'm going to walk away because I know how this situation can go. She came out behind him and said, he is attacking me. What attack is going on? And I'm telling you from, I wasn't there. This was told to me by another parent who is white. Okay, this is her perspective. So she saw it. There's no attack, but automatically, this Black man is in this situation, and there's a white woman saying she's being attacked. There are no words exchanged. There's nothing going on, no reason for it. So it took someone else who was white to explain the dynamics of the situation to the instructor at the school. Because I said, as a parent, this is how we're feeling. We're paying for our children to be here, etc. It really wasn't, there was no understanding. But when a white parent went and explained it, there was understanding. So that is what I mean by being an ally. It's that sometimes, as white people, you have to stand in the gap and provide an explanation where there is none, because we're waving our hands and saying, hey, this isn't right, this is injustice, but we're seen as aggressive, we're seen as attacking. So that's why I think, in addition to acknowledgement, you have to be an ally. There is a clear, distinct difference between what is right and what is wrong. And now when my daughter was removed from that particular class, being the only African American, eventually that teacher was fired because the parents, all of the white parents, kept saying, this teacher is yelling at our children. You see, but there was no change when I said it. So we only had the option to just remove our daughter, from the school. Right. It's instances like that. These happen every day. This is real life. This is what our children are seeing. And so they're seeing the difference between who says what and when they say it and how that all works. So being an ally is very, very important. And then the last thing is dealing with the institutions that are in place. So we know that things have been created, like with the police system, it's working. There's nothing wrong with the police system as it was created. It was created to do exactly what is happening and what we see unfolding in front of us. And so now it is about thinking about the ways that we can deconstruct the systems that have been created to create systems that revolve around equality. So the first step is acknowledgement. The second step is becoming an ally. And then the last step is to really help with the deconstructing of those systems that really serve to execute oppression, and that serve to make the playing field unlevel.
Well, and I think just as human beings, we should be standing up for injustice, period. Mm-hmm. I don't care who it's happening to or what is happening. If you think of it, if I were in a situation, I saw a Black person being unjustly being treated, I wouldn't look at it as a Black person being unjustly treated. I would hope that I would look at it as a human being being unjustly treated. But I think that whole mindset of Black and white, I don't know where that came from, because it seemed like it for a while we were almost overcoming that. And now all of a sudden, and it could be just me, maybe it's just the media playing its games and, bringing everything to the forefront, which is, it's good because a lot of change is going to happen because of it, but it's bad because it's escalating so many feelings in so many people, and a lot of those feelings are not good.
Right.
So I think that we just need to take a step back. Like you said, we need to be allies, and we just need to stand up for what's right and wrong, period.
Right.
Human beings. But yeah, I think that we have a lot more control as white people in making those changes than we realize.
Systemic changes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Systemic
So,
changes. Yeah.
well, thank you. So let's talk about what insight and actionable advice you would offer for people of all races.
Sure. I really believe that this time that we are in right now, I've been referring to it as the golden ticket. We see a lot of hurt. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of loss. There are a lot of things that we're experiencing right now that we've never experienced before. But on the other side of that, there is such wealth of content that we cannot allow to slip away. I was talking to my youngest daughter about the Diary of Anne Frank, and how profound that is. Her sharing and documenting and chronicling a time that we didn't live in. And so this will be a time that someone didn't live in. There will be, I pray, a time where COVID no longer exists. I pray that there will be a time where the pandemic regarding racism no longer exists. But this time that we're living in is very, very prolific. And if we do not do anything else, we must document it. We must document how we stayed mentally sane, through this time. We must document how the world has changed through this time. We must document our emotions. We must document the new information that we've learned, because all of this, all of the times and the days that are passing by, these days are blueprints for future generations. And so my message to everyone is that you must write down what you think, what you feel, what you see. You have to get it down on paper. You have to put it in a song. You have to, craft it in a movie. Whatever it is, you have to create and tell the story, because it will be invaluable to someone very, very soon.
Yes, I totally agree. That's wonderful. So tell us about some of your other literary initiatives by 13th and Joan.
Sure. Well, I'm super excited. Last year, we launched Ardre Orie retreats. I had gone to Japan, and I had been international before, but that was the farthest that I'd gone. And I challenged myself. I wanted to see if writing over there felt different, just being completely out of my element and, immersed in a new culture. And I loved it, every moment of it. So I wanted other writers to have that experience and exposure. So we launched Ardre Orie retreats, and we were scheduled for our first trip to Paris in June. And obviously we did not go, but we are still planning more events, and we're looking forward to the days when people welcome us back, because we are the ones that are not welcome. We're in timeout. They're like, nope, US, you cannot play in the sandbox. So we're planning. We have an amazing group who is already paid up and ready to go to South Africa. We have our group ready to go to Paris. So we're just on standby with those trips. And then we'll also be doing something stateside, really small, really intimate, being safe in the time of COVID and socially distant here in December that we'll be announcing. So we're super excited about that. The one thing that I haven't told anyone is that I am in October, that's next month, I'm launching my first production company, which is called Ink of Anne Productions. Anne is my middle name. No one has ever really known that, probably besides my family. So Ink of Anne, and it is going to be a book to film and TV company. So all of the books that we complete through that initiative or through that company are ones that we will then pitch, for TV and film. I'm really excited about that, because we just have so many amazing stories that come our way. And now we want to be able to, create media in new ways. So those are two initiatives that I'm very, very proud of.
How did you come up with the name 13th and Joan?
Yes, so 13th and Joan, my grandmother was born October 13th, and my mother is Joan, and I was raised in a single parent home. So I always say that my story is the intersection of their stories. And so that's 13th and Joan. People always think, oh my gosh, is that like, a place in New York, 13th and Joan? I want to go, but I thought it had a ring to it.
I love it. No, it's very catchy. It's
Thank
wonderful.
you.
It's
Thank you.
wonderful. So if you ever decide to go to Portugal, I have a very dear friend. She's on our board who's an event planner. She's an international translator. She travels the globe, and she loves to do retreats. We're having a retreat in January of 2021 in Portugal, but it's going to be I'm sorry, I thought I turned that off. It's going to be a both virtual and in-person event, and she loves to plan events, especially for women. So if you'd like, I'd be happy to introduce you, and you could at least have a conversation. Her business partner is from South Africa, and so there's a little bit of synergy there that perhaps you guys could
absolutely
together. Who knows? Anyway, I love introducing great women to great women. So we'll see what happens, right?
Please
I have a friend I've actually two friends in America I've introduced her to, and they've been over there like 5 or 6 times in the last 5 years.
Wow.
Yes. It's a beautiful country, and the people are probably the nicest on the planet, and they love everybody, and if I could convince my husband to retire there, I think we'd retire there in Portugal. Yeah, it's beautiful. Please. So where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Wow, 5 years, that seems like tomorrow, because the way I dream, my dreams are so big, and I always ask God, like, what are you doing? I can't, there's no way I can do this. And that's just the point, that it's too big for me. So I totally see Ink of Anne Productions really taking off. I see us producing a lot of content for TV and for film, optioning those amazing books. I also see the country being open. So Ardre Orie Retreats, I see us really doing what we are setting out to do. That is actually my retirement plan. I don't think that there will be an age, if I'm still breathing and able to walk, that I would not hop on a plane and go somewhere and teach writing. So I see that happening. And most importantly, I see myself having peace. That is the thing that I have been chasing my whole life. Peace and true joy inside. And so I want to say this year was the first time that I truly touched it, that I understood what peace looks like and feels like, and to live and breathe in that space. And so that would be the thing that I will be most proud of, and spending time with my family and my loved ones. I love everything about having a family, because I didn't grow up in a home seeing that. So that's a generational curse that I have broken, and I'm super proud of that. So I see us just really cranking out a lot of media, and I know for a fact that 13th and Joan will continue to grow in magnitude. We're scaling so much. This pandemic has been a time where people I think realize the value of time, and we recognize that it's not promised, number one, and that number two, we better do some of the things that we say we want to do. So let's check off some of those items on the bucket list. And for most people, a book is one of those things. So we've seen monumental growth, and we're continuing to scale the company. So I see myself just being at peace and happy, and watching all of these people, bring their stories to life.
That's wonderful. Any last thoughts?
No, just, everybody make sure that in your lifetime, you tell your story. It is the most freeing thing that you can do. It is the rent that you pay for being here on this earth. I want people to really recognize that their stories do not belong to them. It is not yours to keep. You were given a story, and it becomes heavy because it is supposed to be told. You're supposed to set it free. And I want for everyone to recognize the importance of doing that, and not to sit on it, and to find a way to do it. It's not as hard as you think. It is just a matter of being committed to that challenge. So everyone should tell your story at least once in your lifetime.
Oh, I totally agree. What's the best way for our listeners to get in touch with you, Ardre?
Sure. So we are on all social media as well as our website at 13th and Joan, 13THANDJOAN. And I am available. I am Ardre Orie. IamArdreOrie. All social media and my website.
Excellent. Ardre, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I've learned some things. I think that what you're doing is so important, especially in today's day and age. And I know I'm going to see great things. I'm going to see your name up in lights as a movie. Your story will be told to millions. I can feel it. So thank you very much. What you're doing for others is going to make a huge difference. I want to also thank our audience for listening to the EntreprenHer Show. To learn more about upcoming events and to listen to past interviews, be sure and visit the EntreprenHerShow.com. To learn more about women in e-commerce, visit wecai.org, and make sure you connect with Ardre Orie at Ardre, A-R-D-R-E. Is that right? A-R-D-R-E?
Yes.
ORIE.com or 13thandjune.com. Ardre, thank you again for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.